Namaskar, friends, and Ashwini. Hello to you.
Namaste.
And we are meeting after a month's gap for our Kabiriyat session. I think this is episode 6, if I'm not wrong, right?
Yeah, that's
Yes,
right.
episode 6. So, friends, we are so happy to be back with all of you. There was a month gap due to some uh, unavoidable circumstances, but all is well now. But yeah,
And we
so
are
let's
excited to be back.
yes, and let's turn it over to Ashwini, and she's going to talk about our topic for today. Yes, Ashwini.
Okay, so thank you, Manoj,
Mm-hmm.
and thank you all the viewers
Yes.
for your warm response and for telling us how much you enjoyed this program. So we're very excited to continue. And the poem today, or I should say, the topic today is what you'd like to call as reaching over the barriers.
Mm-hmm.
And continuing, with the philosophy of Saint Kabir in our Kabiriyat program, we are going to talk about yet another very beautiful poem by Saint Kabir. And this poem describes how, despite the superficial differences in our religious practices, all religions teach the same abstract principles, and how these spiritual principles bind the world together. They bind all of us together. So I'll start with the Urdu words of the poem,
Mm-hmm.
and they are like this: जो खुदा मस्जिद वसत है और
Mm-hmm.
मुल्क कहकारा,
Mm-hmm.
तीरथ मूरत राम निवासी, बहर करे को हीरा,
Uh-huh.
पूर्व दिशा हरि का वास, पश्चिम अल्लाह का मुकाम, दिल दिल में खोज, दिल ही में खोजूं, यही करीम यही राम।
Wow.
जेती औरत मर्द उपानी, सो सब रूप तुम्हारा, कबीर है अल्लाह राम का, सो गुरु पीर हमारा.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a beautiful poem and a lot of, very niche Urdu words in
Mm-hmm.
this poem. And the gist of the poem is that, Saint Kabir is trying to say that he belongs to both his guru and his peer. And the words, Sanskrit word guru and the Urdu word peer, they both refer to the same concept of a spiritual guide.
Mm-hmm.
So let's look at it, a little more in detail.
Mm-hmm.
So Saint Kabir talks about God as a spiritual principle which binds us all and is common to all. So in the 15th century India, when Kabir was alive, the significant religious difference was among the Hindus and the Muslims. And his advice was that whether you call the spiritual principle of God by the name of Allah or by the name of Ram, it refers to the same ultimate reality or the highest principle that people worship. And
Mm-hmm.
therefore, naming the principle by different names in different religion is a very superficial difference. That's sort of immaterial. What's really important is that they're all worshiping the same highest reality, and they all believe in worshiping and praying. Saint Kabir asks very insightful questions, and he says, if God, Allah, stays within the mosque, then who is looking after the world? Or alternatively, if God Ram stays in the pilgrimage, then does somebody from the heaven come down to earth to look after the world?
Right.
So he has a bit of a sort of insightful challenges that he throws to people to try and get them to think about, how God is not in the mosque or in the temple or in
Temple.
the pilgrimage, but God is omnipresent. God is everywhere. So then he also says that, if one God stays in the east, the other stays in the west, But the truth is that God stays in one's heart,
Right.
and all the people, like men and women, are all the manifested forms of that spiritual principle.
Right.
Yeah, so Saint Kabir says that he belongs to both his guru and to his peer, and basically says that he belongs to his spiritual guide. And
Right.
so during the time of Saint Kabir, we saw that there was much unrest between the two religious camps,
Hmm.
and Saint Kabir's spiritual work, his personality, his sort of history of belonging to both the camps created this beautiful atmosphere that he was accepted as a leader by both the camps.
Hmm.
And as a result, he was also able to unite both the Hindus and Muslims
Right.
during his lifetime.
Right.
And he gives the credit to his spiritual philosophy and the spiritual principles that he believed in.
Hmm.
So it was really wonderful that people from both the camps accepted him. And
Right.
once before we talked about this story. Remember when you mentioned that when Saint Kabir passed away,
Yes.
there was a
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
function.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you just want to briefly go over that story again?
Oh, yeah. 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 Oh, yeah. So, I mean, uh, it is said, of course, that when he passed away, no. So he was basically he had prevented uh, anybody from entering into his hut in which he was spending his last moments. So, after a few days, when he did not come out of his hut, people entered his hut, and there was like a very divine light emanating from the hut. And then, uh, when they opened the door, to their astonishment, they found that there was no body, but they were just flowers, right?
Yeah,
So, uh, until that point, everybody was debating whether he should be cremated according to the Hindu rites or according to the Muslim customs.
yeah,
But then, when they saw that there was no body, so there was no question of cremation.
right.
And so then, what was decided was some of the flowers were given to the Hindu priest to be consecrated uh, according to the Hindu rituals, and some of them were given to the Muslim Maulavi
Yeah,
to to be consecrated as per their customs, right? So
yeah,
that was the divinity of Sant Kabir Das ji.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
That's true. It's a beautiful story,
yeah,
and of course there are a lot of legends about these saints,
yes.
and some of
And I
them
think,
are.
see, I mean, the common question that people ask is, okay, what is the proof that you have? Well,
Yeah,
I mean, as that way, if you go to see, there are so many theories about evolution of universe and so on and so forth,
hmm,
and about our ancestors being apes, and all those things, right? So there's no
yeah,
proof because we were not there at that time.
yeah,
But then all these historical facts, basically, they uh, guide us in various ways. Sometimes they guide us and help us to figure out what to do in
hmm,
various situations if we are confronted with those situations. And sometimes they
right,
even tell
right.
us what not to do, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
So,
I mean, so let's say, yeah,
mhm,
totally. Like, even if you don't believe this legend, you
yeah,
can always see the sort of like, the sense behind it, or look at
absolutely,
it
absolutely,
as a metaphor and say,
correct,
like, this
exactly,
is
yeah,
how he was able to solve the problem. So I guess, following in his footsteps, we
yes,
can see that, there are still many fractions in our society today.
hmm,
And now we look at our society as a global society, right? Like not one religious camp or another religious camp.
right, right,
But we are so globalized at this point, no
right,
matter which country you're in and
right.
which city you're in.
Well,
And there
actually,
are a lot
both
of fractions. Sorry.
literally and figuratively, because of the online thing, we are actually globalized now.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
totally.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And so
So,
like we see a lot of fractions around us, and sometimes these fractions lead to friction. And
yes,
we see that communities are divided sometimes by religion, sometimes by culture, sometimes even by language or by
yes,
accent,
yes,
and sometimes by the way we speak, the way we dress, the
yes,
community we belong to, the faith we belong to. So what happens is that, like, even if these abstract principles are the same in every religion, we kind of instinctively expect other people to do or say or follow the exact same traditions as
hmm,
we believe in,
hmm,
or otherwise, there's a lot of disapproval by others
yes,
because they see us as different. Now, the acceptance of diversity comes slowly to people. It's a very learned activity. It's not a sort of, instinctual activity.
hmm,
And one of the best ways to accept diversity is by understanding that the abstract principles of philosophy and spirituality that govern any faith are the same. So
right,
these principles, we see get challenged every day because we experience hostility, insults, uncivil behavior, and it just happens all the time.
right,
Like you go out of the street, and, you see that. Sometimes you see that in the families, outside the families, like no matter where you are,
right,
at school, at work. So that's just like sort of human nature.
right,
But it also happens because it's our instinctual behavior. So what Saint Kabir was saying is that, like, we need to take a step back and we try to, sort of implement these principles by understanding them. And then it might help with the sort of, the friction aspect of,
right.
uh, of how we are different.
Yeah, and
Yeah. So the
thereby,
question is not whether it's true.
hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I'm saying, and thereby, of course, reaching over the barriers, right? As we have named this
Yes,
session of ours.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. So we reach over the barriers to understand the other camp.
right.
And sometimes we use this term in the political sort of
Hmm,
um, political way, like reaching across to the other political party or something.
hmm,
But the truth is, like, we have these barriers in all walks of life, and once we understand them, that we have kind of created these barriers,
hmm.
then we also understand that we need to reach over them and sort of like control our instinctual behavior.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
another thing we learn through this is that no religion is superior to any other because they all teach sort of like similar spiritual principles.
hmm,
And just to give an example, that in Hinduism or in the ancient Indian philosophy, we see that both theism and atheism was accepted.
hmm,
Like there were schools like Vedanta, and there were also schools like Charvaka. So there was a lot of like a lot of acceptance to various different schools of thought.
hmm.
Now coming to how we can read the relevance to the modern world in this poem,
Mm-hmm.
I would like to talk a little bit about the diversity and inclusion,
Hmm.
which are very prominent topics these days in our workplaces,
Mm-hmm.
also in our schools and any communities. And it refers to showing respect to different and diverse traditions and different ways of living, and appreciating a different viewpoint
Mm-hmm.
or different ways of doing or thinking.
Right.
And we see that it becomes very challenging, to be open to other ways of life. But when we understand that, human beings everywhere are the same and they have similar needs, they have similar concerns for safety, for dignity, then we understand that, we need to treat people with respect. So
Right.
Saint Kabir definitely was very successful in, sort of calming down conflicts between two camps that were conflicting with each other. And what he showed is that the spiritual principles are the same, and
Right,
that message is still valid. And by
right, right,
spiritual principles, I mean, like, compassion, generosity,
right,
thinking positively.
right,
And they seem like, again, sort of buzzwords, but they're also very important principles. And when we follow them, then we realize that these superficial differences of whether somebody is from the community or another financial background, they kind of sort of fall away.
right,
So it goes back to the same message that we have seen occurring in other poems as well. That
mhm,
when when you apply these principles to our friends and neighbors and others around us, then there's always a hope to create a world of peace and happiness.
right,
So it's interesting how we come to the same theme.
right,
It's like
right,
in music, we always come to the sun.
mhm,
So
right,
it's a
right,
little bit like that.
right, right, right. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. Nice. Wow.
Do you do you want to say anything about the Urdu part of the
No,
poem?
no, I think. Well, I mean, actually, you said it pretty well, though. So I think it's
Well, your
absolutely
Urdu is fabulous. I always sort of enjoy when you speak in Urdu.
right, right. No, no, but uh, I think you already went over those words, no? Peer and
Yeah.
all those words. So I think
Right.
that's absolutely, yeah. So yeah, so that was yeah, very insightful. I think reaching over the barriers is the real key to
Yeah.
happiness, both external and internal, right? So I think once
Right.
we
Right.
cross those barriers, I think any reason for unhappiness is basically within us, right? So
Yeah.
if we are happy,
Totally.
it is because we are happy from within. If we are unhappy, we are unhappy from within.
Yeah.
And the cause of happiness or unhappiness is related to the fact whether we have overcome all barriers
Hmm. Yeah. That
and
that
whether
is
we are
that is a
willing to,
crucial thing.
right? I mean, yeah, or whether we are willing to take the next step and willing to cross over the barriers,
Yeah.
right? I think that willingness is what makes us feel happy, and the lack of willingness is what makes us feel unhappy.
Hmm.
So I think that is the real message that this song
Yeah.
delivers to us. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Like, when we think about our own happiness or our own unhappiness,
Hmm.
it means a lot to us.
Yes.
But it's really, I mean, the key is to sort of like, spread it among other people. And then it
True.
reflects back on us.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
A lot of the
Absolutely.
times we forget that. We just sort of like, feel a lot of self pity. And
Absolutely.
then we
Absolutely.
sort of,
Absolutely.
yeah, don't see the value of spreading it.
Absolutely. Great.
So I know
So
that you've chosen a beautiful rag
yeah.
when you
So this
decided to.
is Basant Mukhari is what we have chosen. The name of the rag.
Mhm.
Uh, it was traditionally used in Arabic music quite a lot, and so that's why the first word itself, "Jo Khuda Masjid Wasat hai," that was basically the catalyst for this composition to happen in this rag actually.
Yeah,
So
lovely.
so this is and it is set to Tal Rupak, which is a 7-beat cycle. So with your permission, Ashwini, and
My pleasure.
with
And I'll put
all of
myself
your
on
permission
mute.
also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tableau level. Tableau on slash off. Button.
Allah
Tabla on slash off. Tabla on slash off.
जो खुदा मस्जिद वसत और मुल्क कहकारा, जो खुदा मस्जिद वसत है और मुल्क कहकारा, तीरथ मूरत राम निवासी, तीरथ मूरत राम निवासी, बहर करे को हेरा, जो खुदा मस्जिद वसत है और मुल्क कहकारा। पूरब दिशा हरि का वास, पश्चिम अल्लाह का मुकाम, पूरब दिशा हरि का वास, पश्चिम अल्लाह का मुकाम, दिल में खोज दिल ही में खोजूं, दिल में खोज दिल ही में खोजूं, तू करीम तू ही राम, जो खुदा मस्जिद बसत और मुल्क हर का, और मुल्क कहकारा। जेते औरत मर्द उपानी, सो सब रूप तुम्हारा, जेते औरत मर्द उपानी, सो सब रूप तुम्हारा, अल्लाह राम का कबीर है, अल्लाह राम का सो गुरु पीर हमारा, जो खुदा मस्जिद वसत है और मुल्क कहकारा, तीरथ मूरत राम निवासी, तीरथ मूरत राम निवासी, बहर करे को हेरा, जो खुदा मस्जिद वसत है और मुल्क
Tagline
हर
on /off. Tagline on /off.
कहकारा।
क्या बात है? Amazing. The composition was superb and so fit to the words of this
Yeah.
poem.
Thank you, Scott. Yeah, just sorry for the couple of slight blips. I
No,
I kept
no.
saying harkara. It's kehkara for some reason. Yeah,
No, that's fine.
yeah. So
And I just wanted to add that some people have asked recently about the words of the poem. So I put all those, poems on my blog and
Yes.
also the article.
yes,
So if anybody is interested, they can go to my blog, which is ashwinimokashi.com, and they can read the
Yes.
poems as well as our discussion.
nice. Yeah,
Yeah, and likewise, you also have a lot of music on your blog.
yeah. I mean, yeah, YouTube channel, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
But thank you so much, Ashwini, for this
Thank you, Manoj.
wonderful, insightful exposition. And we are going to again meet next month. So we
Yeah.
are going to continue with episode
Yes.
number 7.
That's right.
And that's going to be on the second Monday of October,
Right,
October
right.
11th.
Yeah.
So until then, to you also, Ashwini, and to
Yeah.
all the viewers, stay safe and happy thinking
Yes. Yes.
and happy crossing over the barriers.
Reaching over the barriers. Yes.
Yes.
And thank you again for
Yeah.
watching our show.
Yes. Thank you. Namaskar.
Namaskar.